What if China's most extreme mega-project designs aren't about being taller or bigger, but about bending everyday logic until the city itself starts behaving differently? This story isn't driven by spectacle, it's driven by form, where architecture becomes the solution and design carries the entire argument. The first surprise emerges at Liziba Station, where a train doesn't avoid a residential tower, it passes straight through it, turning a collision into coexistence and making urban density part of the design, not a constraint. Then the scale shifts to Guangzhou Circle, a perfectly circular high-rise shaped less like a building and more like a symbol, where empty space becomes structure and the skyline is framed rather than filled. And the boundary moves again at Grand Lisboa Hotel, a tower that rejects symmetry entirely, its explosive form rising from the ground like a controlled burst, designed to be instantly recognizable and impossible to confuse with anything else. How do designs this unconventional stay functional when movement, load, and human use never follow clean lines? And what does it reveal about modern mega-projects when identity, symbolism, and engineering have to work as one system? Stay with this journey as the structure, the design logic, and the trade-offs behind China's most extreme mega-projects are unfolded. Because once the form makes sense, the city never looks the same again. Guangzhou Circle. How do you make a skyline landmark without adding more bulk? By shaping a building so the empty space becomes the main structure people remember? Guangzhou Circle answers that by committing to a single ring silhouette, a design that frames the city rather than simply stacking another vertical slab into it. The concept, led by architect Joseph Di Pasquale, pulls from the ancient jade bidisk and feng shui symbolism, so identity is built into the geometry instead of applied as decoration. At about 138 meters tall, the circle is scaled to compete with a megacity horizon, turning a cultural icon into an object with real urban weight. Its defining move is the cutout core, roughly 48 meters across, because the void is not a gap to hide, it is the feature that makes the whole mass legible from a distance. Placed along the Pearl River, that ring becomes even more powerful when the reflection completes the image into an 8 or infinity-like figure, turning the waterfront into part of the composition. From certain angles, the structure reads less like a conventional building and more like a deliberate frame, an architectural lens that makes the skyline itself feel curated. That is why the building's reputation has always been polarized, admired as instantly iconic, dismissed as strange. Yet it succeeds at the one thing most towers fail at, being impossible to confuse with anything else. Guangzhou Circle stands as a design-first mega-project because it proves form can carry the full argument. Symbolism, structure, and city-scale recognition working as one disciplined system. What happens when a city runs out of clean corridors, and the only way forward is to make transit and housing share the same footprint without turning daily life into constant friction? Liziba Station in Chongqing is the decisive answer, an elevated stop on Chongqing Rail Transit Line 2 that is integrated into a residential building rather than routed around it. The architectural move is not a stunt, but a plan. The station occupies the 6th through 8th floors, so the train's path becomes part of the building's section, not an intrusion treated as an exception. Because integration only works if structures stay independent, project accounts describe a safety separation of about 20 centimeters between the rail supports and the building, aimed at preventing vibration and noise transfer. That separation is reinforced by the monorail's low vibration approach. Rubber tires and air spring support are specifically cited as part of the noise and vibration control strategy, so coexistence is engineered rather than assumed. With the mechanics under control, the larger urban benefit becomes clear. The alignment can pass through dense hillside blocks without demanding wide demolition corridors, which is exactly the kind of spatial compression Chongqing's terrain forces. The result is a new kind of landmark, one where the form is legible from the outside, but the real achievement is invisible discipline, isolation, safety, and operations designed tightly enough that the impossible becomes routine. Liziba ultimately proves the thesis of this series in one clean image. When architecture is treated as a working mechanism, even a supposed collision can be redesigned into stable, livable coexistence. What does a research mega-project look like when the real problem is not reaching higher, but making a campus readable as one connected system at city scale, with a silhouette that never breaks apart? OPPO's Research and Development Center in Shenzhen is built around that single question, choosing a unified figure instead of a scattered cluster so the site communicates cohesion before any signage ever matters. The decisive move is formal. 4 rounded glass towers are physically interconnected, so the project reads as one continuous looped composition rather than 4 independent blocks competing for attention. Scale reinforces the statement, up to 200 meters across 42 floors, with a total area of about 185,000 square meters. Yet the massing is kept deliberately smooth, so the geometry, not ornament, carries the identity. That geometry then solves the ground-level dilemma. The towers taper inward at the lower levels, carving out larger civic space at street level instead of letting the base become a sealed corporate wall. With more space released at the base, the composition can sit lighter on the district, and the building's connectivity promise becomes visible as urban breathing room rather than an internal-only concept. The next constraint is orientation, and the scheme answers by aligning the towers to maximize views over Shenzhen Bay, turning the facade's flow into a directional cue that makes the whole object feel tuned to its waterfront context. The trade-off is inherent to the look. A highly curved, continuous glass envelope demands complex fabrication, tight tolerances, and long-term maintenance discipline, which is the price of making the form this seamless and legible. In the end, the project's unique design is not a decorative flourish. It is a strategic massing decision that compresses scale, clarity, and civic space into one unmistakable shape, proving that a headquarters can brand itself through geometry alone. What does a mega project become when the brief is not symmetry or restraint, but instant recognition? A form so distinctive it reads like a controlled burst frozen into architecture. Grand Lisboa in Macau takes that risk openly, rejecting the quiet logic of the typical tower and instead turning the skyline into a single, unmistakable signature. Designed by Dennis Lau and Ing Chun Man architects and engineers, the hotel rises 261 meters and reaches 52 floors, using scale not as an end goal, but as a canvas for an aggressive silhouette. The exterior is widely described as lotus-inspired, a cultural symbol closely associated with Macau, so the building's identity is carried by shape rather than signage or decoration. That lotus logic is expressed through a flaring, petal-like profile that expands outward as it climbs, making the mass feel like an opening gesture instead of a stacked box. Because the form is intentionally irregular, the architecture has to work harder than a simple prism. The structure and floor geometry must keep loads predictable, while still preserving the exploding outline that makes the tower legible from distance. The result is a building that behaves like a three-dimensional emblem, an object that can stand for the city's entertainment economy without needing to explain itself in words. When night falls, the facade shifts from sculpture to signal, with programmable LED fixtures integrated into the curtain wall system so the surface can be actively choreographed rather than merely floodlit. That lighting strategy turns the tower into something close to a city-scale display plane. Color, rhythm, and contrast amplifying the petal geometry until the whole silhouette reads like motion captured in glass. In the logic of this series, Grand Lisboa is the cleanest proof that extreme design is not decoration. It is identity, symbolism, and engineering forced to operate as one system, strong enough to be recognized in a single glance. Maris Frog Pavilion. What does a mega project become when the brief is not to look corporate, but to let a building feel grown, where shape carries the whole argument before any signage appears? Meeresfrog Pavilion in Shenzhen was designed by Architecture van Brandenburg as part of the brand's larger campus, treating architecture as an identity system rather than a neutral container. The defining exterior move is biomimicry. The roof takes inspiration from the Tridacna gigas clam, using natural geometry to generate a shell-like profile that reads as structure and symbol at once. At about 5,000 square meters, the pavilion is not oversized by campus standards, yet the form makes it feel monumental because the silhouette is continuous and unmistakable. That silhouette is reinforced by material strategy, with the roof clad in recycled materials and bamboo used for concrete formwork. Choices that turn sustainability into visible texture rather than hidden specification. The wider campus language supports the same reading, blending stone, recycled brick, and discarded ceramic tiles to create a handcrafted surface that keeps the curves grounded instead of glossy. Conceptually, the problem being solved is legibility at district scale. Instead of a conventional box, the pavilion uses one dominant gesture so the place can be recognized instantly and remembered as a shape. Even the landscape is treated as part of the mechanism, with water and garden planning described as doing functional work, capturing roof runoff and supporting passive cooling, so the site behaves like a system, not decoration. The trade-off is inherent. Complex curvature and mosaic-like craft can demand higher fabrication discipline and long-term maintenance consistency compared with flat, standardized facades. The result is a rare kind of corporate monument, one that relies on natural logic, reclaimed material character, and a single coherent silhouette to make scale feel intentional rather than merely expensive. Sheraton Huzhou. What does an impossible waterfront hotel become when the real design brief is not a taller skyline, but a single geometric idea strong enough to brand an entire lakeside district? In Huzhou, the Sheraton Moon Hotel answers with a ring-like horseshoe form that treats negative space as the main facade, positioning the lake as an active design partner rather than a passive backdrop. When night falls, the concept tightens into pure legibility because the building stops reading as a stack of rooms and begins reading as one continuous city-scale outline drawn against the water. Lighting follows the arc with deliberate restraint, sharpening the curve while keeping the central void comparatively calm. So absence becomes the most engineered part of the image. That contrast then sets up the signature effect. Water reflection doubles the gesture, turning one ring into a mirrored pair and making the shoreline feel like it is holding a halo. With the outline stabilized by light, the exterior skin becomes a storytelling surface where glow and edge definition do the work that ornament usually does, guiding attention, setting mood, and fixing the form in memory. The advantage is not just beauty but navigation, because a single coherent silhouette becomes effortless wayfinding along the lake, readable from far away without explanation or signage. The cost is built into the choice, since a continuous curved envelope typically demands higher fabrication precision and long-term maintenance discipline than flat facades, especially in a damp, wind-exposed waterfront environment. Yet the payoff is unusually clean. A mega project whose shape only fully completes itself at night when architecture and water combine into one controlled image that a city can recognize instantly. What does a headquarters mega project become when the site is literally split by a metro tunnel, yet the district still needs one clear landmark that reads as a single, connected idea? Infinitus Plaza is designed to answer that brief at the gateway to Guangzhou's Baiyun Central Business District, built on the redevelopment of the decommissioned Baiyun Airport so the form can announce the new district without relying on signage. The constraint is real and physical. Next to Feixiang Park Station on Guangzhou Metro Line 2, the project straddles the metro's subsurface tunnel, which forces the headquarters to be split into two primary buildings. Instead of hiding that split, the architecture turns it into the concept. Two low, flowing volumes are stitched together by multiple bridges, so separation becomes the reason the silhouette looks continuous. From above, the massing is composed as infinite rings, with smooth, curving edges wrapping courtyards, so the campus reads like one looping figure rather than a scattered office park. That coherence matters because the project is enormous, about 185,643 square meters in gross floor area. So without disciplined geometry, it could easily read as a heavy, generic slab. The exterior is also calibrated for Guangzhou's humid subtropical climate, with terrace widths and external perforated aluminum shading panels defined by solar analysis, so the facade stays expressive while actively reducing heat gain. Those facade decisions sit inside a broader performance intent. Zaha Hadid Architects states the project was designed and constructed to LEED Platinum and the equivalent of China's 3-star green building program. So the smooth form is backed by measurable environmental discipline. The trade-off is the one that always comes with seamless curves and bridge connections. Fabrication complexity tighter tolerances, and long-term maintenance demands are effectively priced into the look. In the end, Infinitus Plaza is a clean example of design as problem-solving. A site divided by infrastructure is turned into one readable landmark, or the shape itself communicates connection, clarity, and a district-scale sense of arrival. What do engineers build when a mountain refuses straight lines? Yet the climb still has to feel predictable, safe, and repeatable under real traffic and weather. Near Taiyuan's Tianlong Mountain Scenic Area, Tianlong Mountain Road answers by treating the hillside as the brief, shaping a route that has become a landmark precisely because it follows terrain logic. With a vertical drop of over 350 meters, the key decision is a three-level spiral configuration that replaces one harsh ascent with a controlled sequence of looping climbs. Those stacked arcs do the heavy lifting by extending the path length, managing turning radii and sightlines, and keeping the gradient feeling disciplined rather than punishing, even as elevation changes quickly around it. The advantage is strategic and visible. Instead of carving one aggressive cut through the slope, the design distributes the climb across viaduct geometry, balancing driver comfort with a more careful footprint on the mountainside. In the end, the road's signature look is simply the clearest proof of the real achievement. Geometry used as a practical mechanism to make steep terrain navigable without surrendering to brute force. What does an urban rail megaproject become when streets are already saturated, valleys and hills complicate alignments, and the city still needs a new way to move people without taking more ground? Wuhan's Optics Valley suspended monorail, often branded as the Optics Valley Photon, answers by lifting the entire system into the air and designing it as a civic landmark as much as a transit line. The defining design choice is the suspension itself. The train cars hang beneath a single guideway, so the structure reads like a continuous overhead beam, while the vehicles appear to float below it. That geometry solves a practical space problem because it needs far less surface right-of-way than conventional rail and can pass above roads and corridors with a lighter visual and physical footprint. Once the system is airborne, the next constraint is reliability, so the project is described as fully automated and driverless, an operational design decision that supports consistent spacing and predictable service without adding more complexity at street level. The first phase is reported at 10.5 kilometers with 6 stations, opening on September 26, 2023, which frames it as a real working corridor rather than a short novelty loop. With a maximum operating speed of 60 kilometers per hour and service intervals commonly cited around 10 minutes, the design sits in a middle space, fast enough to feel like transit, calm enough to feel like a moving viewpoint over the district. The exterior benefit story is mainly about system efficiency. Reporting highlights low-carbon technologies and lightweight, energy-focused design choices that make the line easier to operate at scale than heavier rail solutions. The trade-offs are inherent to the same concept. Suspended systems typically carry less peak capacity than full metro lines and demand disciplined inspection and maintenance of beams, hangers, and exposed components. In the end, Wuhan's suspended monorail turns a constraint into a signature. Instead of fighting for ground space, it redesigns the city's daily logic so movement can happen above the grid, quietly proving that shape and strategy can be the same decision. What does a stadium become when the real design problem is not to be taller, but to be instantly readable at city scale, while still behaving like a disciplined structure in wind and crowd load? Hangzhou Olympic Sports Center Stadium answers with a lotus-inspired roofline, using petals and flowing surfaces to translate local motifs, silk texture, and the Qiantang River's motion into one coherent silhouette. That silhouette is not a decorative cap. It is the organizing system, where the roof is broken into 28 major petal structures, so the building reads as a single flower-like crown rather than an anonymous oval. The project's scale is expressed through legibility rather than bulk, with seating listed at about 80,800, which forces the architecture to communicate order and orientation from far away, not just from the gate. Design notes describe extensive parametric modeling to tighten sightlines and efficiency, turning shape into a performance tool instead of letting it become expensive sculpture. One claimed payoff of that approach is material discipline. Published profiles report the scheme uses 67% less steel than Beijing's National Stadium, so the visual softness is backed by structural economy. The trade-off is built into the look. Petal-based roof geometry and a highly customized envelope demand higher fabrication precision and long-term upkeep consistency than simpler stadium shells. In the end, the stadium's extreme design is a clear argument made visible from the air, an iconic roof that doubles as an efficiency strategy, proving that shape can be both identity and mechanism at the same time. What does a future city become when the real constraint is not land or height, but the need to concentrate research, talent, and production into one district that can move faster than the rest of the city? Wuhan Future City is Optics Valley's answer in the East Lake High-Tech Development Zone, planned as a concentrated base that pulls major institutions into a single, legible urban system rather than scattering them across the region. The design logic is clustering. Official regional profiles describe national innovation centers, industrial technology institutes, and computing hubs, including supercomputing and intelligent computing, so infrastructure becomes the district's main architecture. That concentration changes how the city behaves day to day. because R&D campuses, industrial parks, and corporate labs can share the same mobility and service backbone, turning the area into a continuous workflow instead of isolated compounds. The advantage is strategic clarity, an innovation district that reads as one engine, while the trade-off is that it only works with disciplined coordination across transport, utilities, and public realm, so growth does not become fragmented or visually generic. In that sense, Wuhan Future City is not a single landmark, but a mega project in urban form, a district designed to make innovation visible at scale, where the layout itself becomes the mechanism. What do you build when steep terrain and dense neighborhoods leave no room to spread out? Yet a city still needs multiple traffic streams to switch directions without constant conflict. In Guizhou Province, the Qianchun interchange answers by stacking movement vertically, treating elevation as a tool that replaces missing land. Official photo captions describe a 5-layer layout with 11 ramps and 8 entrances and exits, essentially folding a whole set of decisions into a compact footprint. That stacked strategy is the mechanism. Each level isolates a different set of turning conflicts, so the most dangerous weaving happens through separation in space instead of last-second merges. Once conflicts are separated, traffic flow becomes more predictable, because committing to a ramp is like entering a guided path, rather than negotiating a chaotic shared surface. The design also protects the surrounding city fabric, since solving direction changes upward reduces pressure to carve wider surface corridors through already built areas. The trade-off is cognitive and operational. Multi-level complexity demands exceptionally clear signage, lane discipline, and maintenance consistency, because a single missed choice can cascade into long detours. Qianchun's real achievement is that its impossible look is simply constraint made visible, a terrain-bound city using vertical geometry to turn congestion into an organized, readable system. What does a waterfront stadium become when the real brief is not vertical spectacle, but a district-scale icon that can live peacefully inside a coastal greenbelt? Shenzhen Bay Sports Center sits along the Shenzhen Bay Coast Greenbelt in Nanshan, and its Spring Cocoon nickname comes from an elliptical roofline that reads like a single, continuous gesture. The central design decision is consolidation. Instead of separate objects, the complex is composed to feel like one organism. So the roof and envelope carry the identity across multiple venues in one readable form. That unity is achieved through a perforated external steel skin and a flowing roof geometry that visually stitches the parts together, keeping the mass legible without relying on facade clutter or signage. Once the envelope is doing the branding, the planning can stay disciplined, long, low, and stretched, so the building reads more like a designed landform than a bulky arena dropped on the shoreline. The stadium end is shaped as a broad opening that frames movement and sightlines toward the bay, turning the complex into a kind of urban aperture rather than a closed shell. When night arrives, lighting across the lattice-like skin amplifies the woven effect, so the roof reads as a luminous fabric draped over the district instead of a heavy roof sitting on it. Even at event scale, about 20,000 seats for the main stadium, the exterior stays calm because the shape prioritizes continuous edges and clear gateways over aggressive massing. The result is a rare kind of mega-project clarity. One coherent skin turns a complex program into a single, memorable silhouette, while the waterfront setting does the rest of the storytelling. What does a mega-project become when a dense capital's ring road frontage needs to stay walkable and coherent, even as the program wants to sprawl into a full, mixed-use city block? Galaxy Soho answers by refusing the typical tower plus podium logic, instead setting out a continuous, flowing mass that reads like one object rather than a cluster of competing buildings. The design decision is formal but strategic. 4 rounded volumes are fused together and linked by bridges and platforms, so connection is built into the silhouette instead of added later as signage or corridors. That connected form is organized around open courtyards and a larger internal canyon space, which lets the project behave like an urban landscape, voids and edges doing the wayfinding work from above and at street level. Completed in 2012 near Chaoyangmen on Beijing's East 2nd Ring Road, the complex covers roughly 330,000 square meters, so the scale is massive, yet the exterior stays legible through repetition of smooth bands and continuous curvature. The advantage of that approach is clarity at full scale. Pedestrian movement and district identity can read as one continuous system, while the trade-off is that such a dominant, seamless object can feel overpowering if the surrounding street fabric expects smaller, more granular edges. Galaxy Soho ultimately proves a hard architectural point. When shape is treated as an organizing mechanism, a block-sized development can move and hold together like a single idea instead of a list of parts. What does a grand theater become when its boldest move is to wear local identity like a crown, using shape, void, and silhouette to signal culture before a single poster goes up? Yunnan Grand Theater in Kunming, set beside the Yunnan Provincial Museum, was developed as a provincial landmark project and won as a competition scheme by Tongji Design Group, so the exterior had to read clearly at district scale. The design leans into a woven hat idea, often described as the crown of Dian, with inspiration tied to Yi minority headwear. So the massing becomes one continuous lifted gesture, and the roofline is articulated as jewel-like forms rather than a flat cap, across about 47,010 square meters of total construction area. The advantage is instant recognizability and a strong cultural signature from any wide shot, while the trade-off is the long-term discipline required to build and maintain a complex, curved, patterned envelope that has no place to hide imperfections, because the form itself is the message. What do you build when a city must cross a major river at full traffic volume, but there is no room left to widen the ground-level network on either bank? In Wuhan, the Yangtze-Gang suspension bridge answers with a double-deck idea, linking the Hanyang and Wuchang sides, while turning the crossing itself into a controlled piece of urban infrastructure. The core decision is vertical separation. Two stacked road decks, often described as an upper expressway level and a lower city traffic level, so different speeds and trip types stop fighting for the same surface. That separation is scaled up to 12 lanes in total, essentially compressing an entire interchange's worth of capacity into one river crossing without expanding the footprint at the waterline. The form only works because the suspension system carries a main span of about 1,700 meters, keeping the river crossing long and clear while limiting the number of major supports in the channel. With the structure doing that heavy lifting, the bridge can also accommodate more than just cars, with reporting describing space for multiple modes, so the crossing reads like a complete urban link rather than a single-purpose object. The trade-off is the one that comes with any stacked megastructure: higher operational complexity and maintenance discipline. But the payoff is decisive. A city that runs out of land can still expand mobility by designing capacity into the air and making geometry do the organizing. What happens when an airport is designed to behave less like a maze of terminals and more like a single, readable machine for moving people at continental scale? Beijing Daxing International Airport was built to relieve pressure on the capital's older hub, and its planning choice is radical in its simplicity: one compact starfish terminal that concentrates the whole operation into a single figure. The exterior expresses that decision through a low, sweeping roof that spreads into multiple arms, so the building reads from the air as a connected system instead of a campus of separate objects. Scale is handled through footprint and clarity rather than vertical drama. The terminal is reported at about 700,000 square meters, so the architecture has to stay legible even when it is physically enormous. The advantage of the starfish geometry is operational calm. Widely cited reporting describes a maximum walking distance of about 600 meters from the center to the farthest gates, meaning the shape itself is doing wayfinding and time control. Inside, the plan tightens around a central courtyard hub, so check-in, security, and circulation feel like one organized core that sends passengers outward along clear spines rather than through scattered corridors. The roof structure then makes the interior logic visible. 6 flowing structural forms reach down to support the vaulted canopy while pulling daylight deep into the terminal, So orientation is guided by space, not signage overload. A network of linear skylights reinforces that guidance, acting as a luminous map overhead that subtly points movement toward the concourses and back toward the center. The result is an interior that reads like one continuous room, scaled up, wide spans, clear sight lines, and a circulation diagram you can understand in seconds, even when the building is handling heavy peak flows. Daxing's real design achievement is that its extreme form is not decoration at all. The shape is the operating diagram, and that is what makes a massive airport feel controlled, navigable, and surprisingly calm. What do you build when a mountain corridor must become a dependable expressway, even though the ground below it keeps folding, cracking, and changing its rules every few kilometers? The Yaxi Expressway in Sichuan, linking Ya'an and Xichang, was conceived as a continuity project, opened in 2012 to turn a rugged interior route into a stable, high-capacity connection. The core constraint is not speed, but geometry. The alignment has to cross steep valleys and broken ridgelines without forcing drivers into abrupt gradients and blind, punishing turns. So the design makes one discipline trade, length and structure instead of brute cuts, using long viaduct runs and tunnel sections to keep the roadway behaving like a controlled line rather than a series of compromises. That decision is why the expressway reads so cleanly from the air, a pale ribbon held above terrain, with curvature doing the work of smoothing elevation change and preserving momentum through the mountains. Seismic reality is part of the brief as well, with reporting noting the route crosses 12 seismic zones, which forces a mindset of redundancy and resilience instead of merely building to a shape. In practical terms, the architecture of this mega project is its repeatable kit of parts, spans, piers, deck lines, portals, assembled to keep loads predictable while the landscape below stays unpredictable. The advantage is network level. By staying continuous through difficult topography, the corridor reduces the stop-start friction that used to define mountain travel and turns a regional connection into something schedule reliable. The trade-off is long-term discipline, because a route built so heavily on bridges and tunnels depends on constant inspection, drainage control, and winter operations to keep the same smooth line true year after year. Yaxi's uniqueness is that its dramatic shape is not an aesthetic flourish. It is the visible footprint of a single engineering philosophy. When terrain is impossible, the roadway becomes a design system that floats, threads, and endures. What do you build when an expressway has to cross a carved-out gorge, but the terrain leaves no room for slow switchbacks or a wide riverbank approach? Duge Bridge, officially the Beipan River Hangrui Expressway Bridge, solves that constraint on the G56 corridor by spanning the Niju River Gorge on the Guizhou-Yunnan border as a single, legible gesture. The defining decision is to commit to a true canyon crossing, a 4-lane deck set about 565 meters above the gorge floor, turning empty air into the roadway instead of fighting the slopes. To make that silhouette behave, the bridge uses a cable-stayed system with a longest span of about 720 meters, distributing load through stay cables into 2 main towers rather than relying on frequent supports in the ravine. Completed in 2016 and open to traffic in late 2016, it locks the route into continuity between the Chujing-Lupanshui direction, where the crossing stops being a detour and becomes a straight-through link. The trade-off is the same discipline every extreme span design demands: long-term inspection and upkeep of cables, deck, and towers in a setting where wind, weather, and regional seismic realities cannot be ignored. In the end, Duge Bridge is a clean proof of design logic, an audacious shape that looks impossible until the structural system makes it routine, converting a gorge from a hard boundary into a reliable connection. What do you build when a river's greatest threat is not its water alone, but the sediment that slowly lifts its bed and turns ordinary seasons into flood risk? Xiaolangdi Dam sits on the Yellow River in Henan, north of Luoyang, built as a multi-purpose control point meant to stabilize downstream conditions rather than simply hold back a reservoir. Its core design logic is regulation: capture, time, and release, so flood pulses and dry season shortages can be managed as an operating system, not left to chance. That logic matters on the Yellow River because sediment is not a side issue. It is the main engineering adversary, shaping channel capacity and long-term safety downstream. The project's storage is reported at about 12.65 billion cubic meters, giving operators enough room to modulate releases while also allocating a large share of space to sediment management. The signature exterior feature is operational, not decorative. The dam integrates 15 large tunnels used for flood release, sediment discharge, and diversions associated with power generation, so the structure can actively move material, not just store it. In practice, this enables controlled, high-energy releases that behave like engineered floods, flushing sediment through the river corridor instead of letting it accumulate and silently steal capacity year after year. Visually, that is why the dam reads so alive from an exterior shot. Spillways and outlet works are part of the architecture's identity because the project's purpose is expressed through motion and discharge, not a static skyline pose. The payoff has been downstream risk reduction and stronger seasonal control after it entered operation in 2000. But the trade-off is permanent. Sediment deposition steadily squeezes the flexibility of controlled releases, forcing tighter operating discipline over time. Xiaolongdi ultimately proves a harsher kind of design elegance. A mega project whose shape is really a set of managed exits, built to keep a sediment-heavy river governable long after the concrete stops being new.